Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this very special webinar brought to you, of course, proudly by Proudly South African. My name is Andile Khumalo, and we're together all the way until just after midday, trying to assist you, the South African entrepreneur, with finding a way to thrive in these very difficult times. I'm joined by an esteemed panel of really experienced people, not just speakers, who are going to be sharing really practical tips on how you and I can better manage our businesses in these very, very, very difficult times, and times that are really unprecedented for many of us who've started and operated businesses. Now, this particular webinar is part of a series that Proudly SA has been running, all about helping mainly small and medium-sized South African businesses navigate their way through these hard times. Membership of Proudly SA is advantageous to you, of course. It allows you to be able to have access to such platforms, but it gives you that stamp of approval for all your customers to know that you are a credible South African business, that whoever gives you patronage is there to support local. And it has never been a more important time for us to support local businesses. I was reading just this morning in the newspaper how the tourism sector is obviously going to be focusing on South Africans traveling the country. So this December, as you're planning your holidays, just look for the best places to travel around South Africa and continue to support local. And in fact, look for the ones that are actually members of Proudly South African. Today's webinar is streaming on many platforms, including Zoom, but we're also on Facebook Live, and we are carrying it through our Proudly SA page. So please go to Proudly South African on Facebook and share that page with all of your friends so that they're able to log in to this session as well. But a warm welcome to you, especially those that are joining us live on the Zoom platform. I look forward to all of your comments and questions. As you know, there's a Q&A tab at the bottom there for you to throw in your questions. We'll be going through all of the presentations and all of the speakers one after the other. So please just throw your questions. And when we get to Q&A, I will make sure that we raise those questions to the audience as much as we can, or rather our panelists. And there may be other questions that my panelists and my support team from Proudly SA in the background will be responding to you directly. So look out for those responses as well. You may be looking for direction or looking for kind of one-word answers. Feel free to ask those questions. The team is there in the background and they'll make sure that they point you in the right direction. So back to today, what are we doing today? As we said, we're trying to help you thrive in these difficult times in this COVID world. And what we've decided to do is we're going to focus on three specific themes. Theme number one is going to be about e-commerce, all right? If you do not know what e-commerce is, it means that you are able to trade online. You don't have to get out of your house, jump into your car, go to a mall, walk into a store, find a product and pay over. No. And then jump back into your car after paying for parking, drive back home, go and fit it. No. Everything happens online. So your question should be, how do I get my business to be on an online platform that's affordable and that's reachable? And that's why we got the official platform e-commerce partner, which is RSA Made, represented by good man Ntai Khojane, who will be taking you through what the offering is on RSA Made and how you can get your business at a very, very low price online. And you're able to sell your wares, your goods and products on an online platform. So there you go. That's the first thing we're focusing on. The second is finance, okay? So the language of business is finance. If you do not understand the basics of finance, you are probably also not going to be able to understand what is it that you're doing or not doing. So I will be sharing some insights and specifically some tips that I have for you of how to make sure you thrive in the situation that we found ourselves in. With COVID-19, I'm sure you've seen all the headlines. Our GDP went down by 51% in the second quarter. That's likely to continue and be, just as bad, if not a little bit worse. So this year, all the forecasts had said our economy would lose about 5 to 8%. All those forecasts are now at double digits. So it's going to be a tough year. How do you make sure that you are able to preserve cash? You're able to keep your business running, notwithstanding the fact that business confidence and everything else is going to be low. So I'll be sharing with you some insights and some very practical tips on how to do that. And then right at the end, my man Musa Kalenga has done a presentation for us that we'll be playing for you about your digital marketing strategy. How should you view your digital marketing? So Ntai's going to help you sell your wares. I'm going to help you manage your finances, but Musa is going to help you market, because just because you're an e-commerce platform doesn't mean people are going to buy your stuff. You got to know the tricks of the trade on how to make sure you get the word out there about what it is that you are selling so that we can go to RSA Made and actually buy it. My favorite experience of RSA Made was a wine business. I think they're based in Cape Town, J9. And I tasted their wine at a wine event and I asked them, how do I buy? And they just sent me the link to RSA Made. I clicked on the link straight to their shop. I bought my wine, it got delivered in a few days. So that's what we are hoping to help you with for the next hour and a bit. All right, you're most welcome. Make sure you throw in those questions and I'll make sure that I send them to our panel as we go through the morning. But first up, to just lay the land for us and contextualize the campaign that is Proudly South African, particularly in these difficult COVID times, please put your hands together for the Chief Executive of Proudly South African, Mr. Eustace Mashimbe. Eustace, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. There we go. We need you. There we are. All right.
Thank you. I started sharing my screen before I switched on my video. Apologies for that.
No worries.
Okay, so thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the introduction, Andile, and to everyone who took time out to join us this morning. I'll be brief. I promise I'll be brief. I was told that the concentration span on virtual conferences and meetings is not the same as when we were having physical interaction. So I'm going to be brief, but I'll still make sure that I cover all the bases in terms of who we are as a buy local campaign and give you a sense of why it would benefit you and broadly benefit the economy if you support Proudly South African as a campaign. So what we are is a buy local campaign, and we seek to influence the buying of locally made products, both in the private sector and the public sector, as well as by ordinary consumers, so that we can grow the economy and stimulate job creation as a result of the increase in demand for locally made products. And it's a global phenomenon. This concept of buying local is a global phenomenon. And as you can see on my screen, I've used the US as an example of what was done in other parts of the world to drive buy local campaigns. In fact, the US has legislation in place. So they enacted an act as far back as 1933, the Buy American Act. They followed it up with the Buy America Act in 1982 and issued an improvement to that Buy America Act in 2017. And the aim of all these acts is to make sure that they support their labor-intensive sectors, sectors that are able to absorb as many of their skilled and unskilled people as possible, by ensuring that where there is demand for products that exist in the US and they're able to make the products themselves, that the product that is ultimately bought is bought locally. And when you look at before, what the unemployment rate was before COVID-19, look at the trends. I mean, I took my numbers from May 2017 all the way to May 2019. And you can see that the numbers kept going down. So where they, in 2017, had unemployment hovering just below 4.5, they were able to drop it to level as low as 3.6 in May 2019. So the graph keeps going down simply because of all those policies and acts that they have in place, where if they make anything locally, they're going to buy it locally. And this is a country with 329 million people, but only 5.9 million of their people are unemployed. If you look at China, China sits with a population of an estimated 1.4 billion people, but before COVID-19, the graph kept going down. I mean, you see it was as low as 3.67 in January 2019. So you know that China has positioned themselves as a factory for the world. If there's any product that is consumed anywhere in the world, even if they do not consume it themselves, they will make the product simply because there is a market for it out there. And that's what reindustrialization is about. It's about making sure that whatever is consumed in your country, outside of your country, is made within the borders of that country. But the important thing with reindustrialization is you need to make sure that those within the borders of your own country start supporting and buying that which you make locally. Otherwise, you will be out of business quickly as a manufacturer or as a service provider. And so the unemployment rate in South Africa stood at 30.1%. In fact, the numbers are coming out for Q2. These are the numbers for Q1, which ended in March 2020. And if you look at the expanded definition of unemployment, that number is actually much higher. It was 30.1%, gives you 7.1 million people unemployed, way more than what I showed you for the US. I showed you a 329 million number of people living in the US. We have only 59 million people, but they have only 6 million people unemployed, 5.9 in fact to be exact. We have 7.1. And if you look at the expanded definition of unemployment, there's a further or an additional 2.9 million people that are unemployed, who are discouraged and have stopped looking for work. So I think the crisis in South Africa requires all of us to start thinking differently. And we were in trouble even before COVID-19 hit us. And so if you look at two quick examples of industries that have suffered as a result of imports, as a result of us choosing to buy imported products. And by us, I mean the private sector, I mean the public sector, and I mean as ordinary consumers. We all buy furniture in one form or another. And the furniture industry used to have 3,500 factories making furniture in the country. That was reduced to 2,200 factories. And if you look at the number of people employed in that industry, used to have about 50,000 direct jobs, but that was reduced to 26,000 direct jobs created during that period, or retained during that period in that industry. And that is just direct jobs, but there are other indirect jobs as part of the furniture sector value chain. Look at what the plastics industry contributes. It contributes synthetic fibers, which are converted into textiles. The natural fibers, hides and skins are converted into leather items. The metal industry contributes metal parts. There are jobs created in the chemical sector because of the paint and adhesive that is used by the furniture industry when they make furniture. The sawmills and board mills are converted into lumber and particle board. So all these industries, whether it's the plastics industry, the agricultural industry, the metal industry, the chemical industry, they are all impacted on every single time a furniture item is imported, because there are jobs then lost. Because the demand for those products then benefits the economy of another country. And so outside of the 24,000 jobs, direct jobs that were lost in the furniture industry over the 20-year period, there are more jobs that were lost indirectly as a result of us buying imported items. Here's another example, the clothing, textile, footwear, leather industry. So every time you buy shoes, you buy bags, you buy curtains, you buy actual clothing, any garment that you buy, you are contributing to jobs in that specific industry. And as a result, there were 1,600 factories in the country that used to make these items. And that was reduced to 900 factories in 2016. And this is the result. This is what caused that decline in the factories, is what you see here. 480% increase in imports that came into the country, but 730% increase in imports from China. So every time you make a purchasing decision, look at the country of origin label. If the garment says made in China, it means you're supporting jobs in China. In terms of number of people directly employed in that industry, it used to employ 200,000 people, and the number of people employed in that industry dropped to 90,000. And if you think of towns that used to be built on the back of factories that make clothing, textile, footwear, and leather items, you will recall that there are towns like Newcastle, Babelegi is another one which is the industrial park in Pretoria, but Tlantla, Botshabelo, those towns used to employ a lot of people through this clothing, textile, and footwear factories that used to operate in those towns. And so as a source of employment in those towns, the minute those factories closed down, there was a lot of hunger and poverty that befell those towns, because a lot of people lost their source of income. So we need to think of our purchasing decisions as a contributor to and an enabler to creation of jobs and something that contributes to the growth of the economy. So the focus areas for Proudly South African is to look at what is bought by the public sector and influence that and ensure that those purchasing decisions benefit the local economy. The same for the private sector, that the private sector and businesses, both small, medium, and large enterprises, when they make purchasing decisions, that they buy locally made products, and that the general public as well, when they make decisions, when you buy for your own households, look out for the country of origin label to make sure that you buy that which is locally made. And the fourth area of the work that we do as Proudly South African is to ensure that we promote accessibility of locally made products and services. So anyone who wants to buy local needs to know where to find it. Andile spoke about the fact that there is an online store called RSA Made. And Ntai, Khojane will come on later to talk to you about that platform. But that is just another way that we're making it easy for consumers to find locally made products and services. We also have a database that is geared towards business-to-business opportunities. It operates as a marketplace where anyone in the private sector knows that when they go into a database, they can easily find products that are locally made. So how do consumers know that products are made in South Africa, or how can they easily identify products that affiliate with Proudly South African? For us, it's for them to look out for the Proudly SA logo. And every time you come across a product that has the Proudly SA logo, you know that it ticks all these 4 boxes. One, that the product is locally made. So local content talks about the fact that even the raw materials or the components that are used to make that final product are sourced locally as best as possible. There are instances we know where the raw materials or components might not be available in the country. And so what we advocate for is that those products that come into the country, those raw materials must not necessarily be the finished product. There must be raw materials that can still be converted within the borders of South Africa so that jobs are created in the process. We also look at whether that final product is of a high quality nature. So quality is the second thing that is important for us. We want every single company that produces their product locally to adhere to the standards set out for for those products or even services in that specific industry, and for them to tick those boxes. We then also look at whether the company, in the course of producing the product or rendering the business, implements sound environmental practices like recycling, reuse of material, disposing of waste responsibly, and just basically ensuring that we can sustain the environment. And lastly, companies that affiliate with us have to comply with the labor legislation of the country and implement sound and fair labor practices. There is perception out there that membership of Proudly South African is expensive, and it's not. For those companies that want to affiliate with us, who have a turnover of 5 million rands or less, they only have to pay 500 rands per annum, excluding VAT. And as you can see on the screen, the most that any company that affiliates with us has to pay is 100,000 rands, and that is for companies with turnovers of 100 million rands and more. So if you want to affiliate with us, that is the fee that you need to pay. There is an array of benefits. I won't necessarily touch on all of them because my last few slides, which I'll go through in the next 2 minutes, will give you a sense of what the benefits are over and above the ability for you to use the Proudly South African logo on all your products, on all your collateral, on anything and everything that you put out there to identify your company and to promote the services and your offerings that are offered by your business. So you can use the logo and you can participate in access to market platforms. Proudly South African is about ensuring that we promote access to market for Proudly SA products. And we do this through our RSA Made platform. We do this through tender opportunities that we identify in the private sector. We have a database of locally made products and services that is promoted to the private sector. We then also facilitate business-to-business opportunities for our members to do business with each other. So I'll be quick with these slides just to give you a sense of what we do in the public sector. The public sector is designated items. The designation simply means that if they buy any of those designated goods, they are going to buy them from companies that are going to supply locally made products. And this is a range of products from small ticket items like your clothing and textiles, and they go all the way up to bus bodies and locomotives that are bought by Transnet and PRASA and them. So whenever government buys these items, they issue tenders, and what we do is we look out for those tenders that are advertised by government, and we try and see if those tenders that are advertised by government contain the provision that says they will only consider locally made products when they accept the goods that are delivered to them. So the bid document must demonstrate that the product to be supplied to government will be locally made. And that is for the 27 designated items. Designated items are available on the DTI website. And so what we do is to track the tenders, make sure that as we identify those tenders that are advertised by government, we then send them to our members. So if it's a tender for furniture, as we pick up the tender, because furniture is also designated, as we pick up that tender for furniture, we will send it to you as a member of Proudly South African that registered as a furniture manufacturer, so that if it's a tender that you might have missed, you then have an opportunity to bid for it. But we also help government correct the tender where the provisions are not there that will exclude importers. So we then write to the government entity to say, we see you've issued a tender. The tender does not have the provisions that will exclude imported products or importers. So they are then able to reissue the tender with the correct provisions, and basically is to make sure that ultimately the tender goes to local producers. So we do this across all government departments, whether at provincial level, at national level, at municipality level, as well as with all SOEs. When it comes to the private sector, what we are doing is we promote the database of locally made products as hosted by Proudly South African to the private sector. And this database contains vetted members who companies that are vetted for quality and local content. So we go to the private sector and we solicit what we call localization commitments. Quick examples is where the commitment can be for an item such as furniture, where they then as an entity, and the example we've given here is where we go to the banks and we say, can you ring fence furniture for us as an item that can be bought locally by all your banks. So every time the bank buys furniture, based on that commitment, they're going to buy it from local manufacturers. And so on the back of these commitments, we then have to identify companies on our database that we can refer to the banks. And where we don't necessarily have the items or suppliers that can provide these items, we then rely on the relationships we have with the industry bodies, but we still vet the companies for quality and local content so that we can then have a list of companies that we can send to the banks confidently knowing that they will deliver as expected. This then enables the banks to transact with those furniture manufacturers. And what we do as Proudly South African is we are implementing a dashboard and a system of evaluation and monitoring where we can say, based on the procurement spend for that commitment, how many jobs were created, how many jobs were retained, and we do this together with the industry. So we do this across all industries, and this is just four quick examples as I head towards the end of my presentation, is that we seek commitments across all industries. The first example is we went to the banks and we asked for them to buy locally made furniture. We already have 2 banks that have committed to this. The second thing is that we talk to the retailers. And with the retailers, what we've asked them to do in the clothing and textile space is to start placing their orders with factories based in South Africa. So it's still the same garment that you will be buying as a consumer. The difference is that the garment is no longer made in China, but is made by a factory in KwaZulu-Natal or in Western Cape, or wherever the factory is located within the borders of South Africa. We're having the same conversations now with the FMCG guys. We're having the same conversation with the furniture retailers, just to make sure that what you ultimately find in the stores when you walk in as a consumer is made locally. So we've had successes in the clothing and textile space with Edcon, with Foschini Group, with Mr. Price. We're working with Woolworths and Truworths and Pick and Pay Clothing. We're talking to all these guys right now. We have successes in the furniture space with Fair Price and Louis and those guys. Same thing is now happening with ShopRite and those guys, where we're trying to get them to also buy locally made products for the customers to interact within their stores. We then also look at those who buy a lot of raw materials. In fact, my favorite example, I know in my slide I use Coca-Cola, but my favorite example for obvious reasons, I think, is SAB. South African breweries have local content levels standing at 97%, where they support farmers who grow the maize, the barley, and the hops, and these are the guys they buy from, their raw materials. The packaging comes from local sources, and the adhesives and the ends and everything else that they use to package their beer that they take into the market is sourced locally. And that's what we're looking for as commitments across all industries. These are just examples. The last one is where we lobby entities that represent a lot of buying. And an example that we gave there is the Franchise Association of South Africa, where we've asked the Franchise Association of South Africa to start buying from local companies. And the first port of call, obviously, for them is Proudly South African member companies. I'm being told that I'm out of time. We also have a consumer education drive that we roll out across the country, and we do this in malls, outside of this COVID space, when things are normal. We go into malls, we go into festivals, we go into sporting stadiums, we do online competitions, we do consumer advertising, we roll out activations at universities, and work with unions to try and drive the buy local narrative to reach as many South Africans as possible. And as I conclude, Program Director, I want to play an ad, 45-second ad, demonstrating the kind of consumer education message that we are taking out to the public. We're calling on South Africans to be loyal, to change their loyalty towards the loyalty towards the brands that they consume on a day-to-day basis, and make sure that there's a shift in terms of loyalty towards South African-made products. And this is a campaign that we rolled out over the past 2 months. We rolled it out we launched it on the 3rd of July. And it was on various broadcasting channels. But for those who have not seen it, please indulge me for the next 45 seconds.
The second half is about to begin. We need to change the scoreboard. It's time for all of us to pause and rethink the game plan in order to save the future. I call on all of us to be game changers because greatness isn't reserved only for some people. By buying local, we're choosing to create jobs and sustain the ones we have. Time and time again, South Africans have taken destiny into their own hands, creating products that the rest of the world wanted to buy. See, the world remembers about us, what we sometimes forget. But it's time for change. Let's all buy local. It's game time. Zanzi.
Local is lekker.
Everyday decisions shape our future.
And I think that the call to action is quite clear. Your everyday decisions, your everyday buying decisions shape our future. And that's what we're calling for. I will leave this slide for Ntai. I will not talk necessarily about RSA Made, but what, as a parting shot, I'm going to call for is go to the Proudly SA website. There are portals that have been created on there for masks, for sanitizers, for disinfectants and detergents. As business people, you are buying these things for your companies. And what we've done is we've packaged and found companies that are making these products locally, because at the beginning of this COVID-19 pandemic, when companies were responding to this, they were importing these items. And there are many jobs that are on the line. And that's why we've packaged this as a marketplace, and anyone who wants to buy these items can go onto that platform and buy it and basically support local. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief Executive Officer. Thank you for those opening remarks. And indeed, it does contextualize the work that the campaign is doing. I love the fact that it's time to change the scoreboard. Second half has started. So there you go. All the levels are over. We're at level 1. We have no excuse to not get on the pitch and try and change the scoreboard, because the scoreboard is not looking very good right now. But to help us change the scoreboard is my next panelist and guest. His name is Ntai Khojane. He's also the non-executive chairman and co-founder of RSA Made. Now, I remember the early days of him starting RSA Made, and it brings me great joy to see it as the official, proudly South African online shopping and e-commerce platform. And he's going to tell you and I how we can get our products sold with the right stamp of approval of Proudly South African. Ntai, over to you, sir.
Andile, thanks very much. Mr. CEO, thanks for the words. Welcome, everybody. My name is Ntai Khojane. Like Andile says, I'm the chairman and co-founder of RSA Made, a business that started 4 years ago with quite a number of things in mind. But the biggest thing was to bring a solution to the market. And that solution is access to market. So today I'm gonna go through a couple of things on how we're gonna help you with your e-commerce strategy, how RSA Made can get involved with that. And hopefully by the end of this, you'll be able to just click online, register, and jump on board with us. So before I get into the detail, a very famous guy, you might know him, his name is Bill Gates. He says, if your business is not on the internet, then your business will be out of business. Very simply put, ladies and gentlemen, if you are today not online, you are doing something wrong. And I'm here to ensure that that doesn't go on. And let's be very clear, whether you are selling on Facebook or Instagram, or you have your own e-commerce platform, that means you are online. What I'm here today to do really is try to help you professionalize and take you the one step further. So between 2011 and 2019, we've seen a very slow uptake. And I'm sure you guys are all aware that COVID has probably in 2020 really impacted the increase of users online. So what does that mean? We have 70% of users online are potential shoppers, 70%. That means today that about 32.4 million people are your potential customers. Now, obviously, for those who are not aware, we spend well over R1 trillion as a retail country. We spend a lot of money buying things, whether it's movie tickets, airplane tickets, groceries, fridges online, we buy a lot. So regardless of what industry you're in, you need to be online and take a piece of the pie. 70% of users is a big number. Now, I'm going to show you in the next slide that number is going to grow exponentially over the next 10 years. today we have about 55 billion rand being spent online, and that's a conservative figure for 2019. The numbers are still not clear at the moment, but we are around about 55 billion in 2019. 2020, many experts are saying that number is going to grow, and it's going to grow significantly. So we're looking at about an increase almost of about 30 billion in 2020. If you look at the unicorn stage, we then move into 160 billion. 2029, they're anticipating 400 billion. Now, I'm going to say this a couple of times during this webinar, and please bear with me, but if you are not online, then you're not in business. It's very simple. These numbers are too big to ignore. Who's RSA Made? So RSA Made is a company that started about 4 years ago. Back to Andile's point, I've been talking about this business for a long time, but my co-founder Karamba and I decided 4 years ago that, look, we need to register a company. We need to take this idea forward because it's an idea that was born literally over a beer and pizza. And we took it very seriously. There's a couple of reasons why we did that. Number one, again, the opportunity is vast. Number two, Karamba and his wife one day were shopping and they were purposely looking for things that were manufactured in South Africa and they could not find them. So then that led to the birth of RSA Made. What we are is a mall. We are essentially a mall in progress. So we are in flight, but we continue adding pieces and changing things, moving things around just to accommodate the economy that we find ourselves in. It's a mall that is strictly South African. Everything that you can think of that you want to buy is going to be in that mall. We cater to both businesses and to consumers. And I'll tell you again a little later why the B2B portion of our platform was born. It's very critical, but the main focus for us at the initial stages of this business was to address the B2C business. Ultimately, our customer is you, the consumer, but let's not close our eyes to the fact that we have borders and people come into the country all the time and find things that they love, want to take home. When they get home, they also want to purchase. So our consumer is also the international client who knows South Africa, who's been to South Africa, and who wants to buy South African. The model of the business, and this is really where how the business was born. We were born as a drop shipping business. And what that means in very few words is that you as a manufacturer or you as a producer of goods house your own product. RSA Made is a conduit to the market. We are your access to market. I think you heard our CEO speaking previously where he says we are giving access to market to those that need it the most. So we are the access to market. The merchant, the producers house their own product, and we make sure that whichever way possible, we get that good to the consumer. Now, when I say we started out as we started out as a drop shipping business. I think it's safe to say we are now a hybrid, and more days go by, we learn quickly that in South Africa, we cannot adopt things that are happening overseas. We have our own flavor. We have our own way of doing things. So we are quickly becoming a hybrid e-commerce platform. We do a little bit of drop shipping. We house some of the products ourselves. And we want you guys to know as merchants that if you are producing and you don't have space in your house or in your garage or in your small office, we happily will help cater to space in our warehouse to house your goods. That was one of the reasons why we created that space. But the other reason we created that space is we quickly learned that most of our producers and our manufacturers are based in Gauteng, and that makes for easy transport of those goods once they're ordered. What drop shipping did was it made us have to ship goods from 7 different locations to one person who was buying, and that really wasn't sustainable. So the other reason why we have our own warehouse now is so that we can ship from one central point. Now, as you guys are aware, we as a people we were not very good with trust. Right, we have trust issues, and that's not a bad thing. I think we've historically had very serious issues with putting our information out on the web, credit card details, physical addresses, and so there was a little bit of hesitation from the public around online purchasing. So we've made sure that we can accommodate 150 different types of currencies worldwide. So wherever your person is buying from, we accept that currency. We have relationships with all the major banks in the country. So whether you're ABSA, FNB, we have zero issues with our banking facility. We even have gone as far as allowing for Bitcoin purchases and also credit applications. So if you want to purchase goods on credit, we also have that facility. We're trying to do everything in our power to make sure that all the hindrances to buying online are taken care of. Now, obviously, in doing what we do, there's a lot of partnerships that come into play. A lot of people, a lot of businesses that have helped us along the way, and that we've forged relationships with, that makes it a little easier for us to sell. And I'm not going to go through all of them. I just want to touch really quickly on 4 of them that you may or may not be aware of. Obviously, the first one is Proudly South African, no introduction needed, our biggest partner, and we absolutely appreciate the support we get from Proudly South African, and we are obviously working on with the same agenda in terms of uplifting of the economy. So the three guys I want to really talk to you about is Pargo. Why am I talking to you about Pargo? Pargo allows us to use their over 2,500 of their pickup points. So if you don't want to put your physical address online, use Pargo, have it dropped off at a Clicks near you or at a Pick and Pay near you, and there you go. The second partner that I want to talk to quickly about is our newest partner, in fact, is the Connect Deliveries. Now, again, we are based in Gauteng, and most of our purchases, most of our merchants are in Gauteng. If you have an super urgent delivery within, 100-kilometer radius, we now have 3 or 4 bikes that help with those quick deliveries. We literally can get to you within an hour or 2 on special request, and on obviously with preparations made. And then the last one I want to talk about is What 3 Words. Now, What 3 Words is really a game changer. What 3 Words literally has broken up the entire globe into squares of 3 by 3 meter squares, and that 3 by 3 meter square is literally your physical address. What does that mean? That means if you want to buy something for a friend, a family member, a relative that doesn't have a physical address in the rural communities, you can actually use what 3 Words to get parcels to them, because What 3 Words is being used by most of the courier companies in the country now. And literally, when you send that package, that physical address is not two Dumpy Road. That physical address is going to be 3 words, and those 3 words are randomly selected, but are permanent. Once they've been assigned to your 3 by 3 square block, that becomes the address for the courier guys to deliver the parcels. So again, back to my point earlier that we have become a hybrid e-commerce platform, and every day brings about new challenges, new changes, and we want to adapt to those to make the shopping experience easier for our consumer. We want to make sure that you as a service provider or you as a producer has access to market, and we're talking about the entire market. The last thing I want to talk to you guys is the what brought about the B2B component of the platform. Now, there's a lot of small businesses, medium business, and even large businesses today that are still doing everything manually. We with a platform like RSA made, we remove that manual process. We remove not all, but most of the ways you can make mistakes in the business, and all those mistakes typically or normally would cost you money. So we try to reduce your cost and remove all incidences in this fashion. We also allow your customers to place orders onto the business and keep track of them, because again, they're now using a digital platform, and tracking is available up to the time it gets to your door, whether it be your physical door or your pickup location that Pargo sends it to. And then ultimately, what we do for businesses is we streamline them. We streamline your business by removing all of the the manual orders, and we make transacting easy. No more picking up a phone and calling and asking where my order is, because believe it or not, there's still quite a number of businesses in today's environment that are using that manual process. So we want to make sure that whether you're a consumer or you're a business, that everything is made easier, everything is made hassle-free, and you can actually focus on what you're here to focus on. So we remove all the clutter, we remove all the incidences, and we remove the admin of running a sales environment online. Let us take care of that for you. No matter how big or small you think you are as a business, you have to give yourself access to the online market. Ladies and gentlemen, I mentioned this earlier in my opening. The market is far too big for you not to be online. If you want to start small, that's great. What we're saying is we are here to help. We are here to make sure that that process is made easier. And we are also here as a supplement, just by the way. If you already have your own e-commerce platform, that's 100%. We could be supplement to your current environment. And that's what we're here for. So please reach out to us. You can find us, or you can send queries to info@rsamade.co.za, or you can just go to our website, www.rsamade.co.za, and click on the link for the info and reach out to us. We'll help you get listed and registered with Proudly South African, and we'll get you selling in no time. Thanks everybody for your attention. We really hope to see you soon. Andile, thank you.
Thank you, Ntai. Much appreciated, my brother. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Really, really that simple. RSA Made will change your life because you'll be put essentially in a virtual mall. I like that reference of making sure that people buy more and more online. And we've seen what COVID has done, and we've seen how people have taken up the option of buying their goods and products online. So absolutely, that is what you should be doing. And as Ntai has already said, it just makes sense. If you're not doing it, where have you been? Thank you very much, Ntai. Now we're going to move on to the finance section, which I will be running. Let me just sort myself out and share my screen so that you are able to see everything I need to say. And I thought I would focus on a couple of themes. I hope everybody can see that. I thought I'd focus on a few themes around finance and what is it that I think people should be focusing on and in these times. And I think there's three things that we need to potentially go through. The first being the features of this COVID world. What are we talking about when we talk about this COVID world? What are some of the ways of identifying the things that are changing, particularly when it comes to South Africa, and particularly when we talk about the economy? And then secondly, I want to talk about what does it then mean for you as an entrepreneur? Very often we read these big stats on news channels and newspapers, but we're never quite sure, therefore, how does it really translate and what should I be doing about it? And then I'll talk to you about three things that have certainly helped me thrive in this difficult time. And I've seen it also being applied in the businesses I'm invested in. And I thought that you as entrepreneurs would benefit from some of that experience. So let's go through with that. Right, there we go. Right, so I think there's 5 characteristics of this COVID world from a financial perspective. We've all had to deal with the fact that the whole world is essentially stayed at home. But because the whole world has stayed at home, that has compromised the productivity of the economies, not just in South Africa, but literally all over the world. So the one feature is just low economic growth. Why? Because the wheels of the economy were not moving for, call it, most of the year. The last time all our world changed came at the end of March earlier this year. Look at us now, we're about to get into October. So it's eventually the whole year pretty much gone. And hence the statistics that you've seen that tell us that we've lost 51%, or rather the economy has reduced on an annualized basis, quarter on quarter, for Q2 rather of this year, 51%. So that tells you, right? So the cake is halved, and we'll touch on that a little bit later. High unemployment is the other. Because of low economic growth, because of low economic activity, many companies, in order to survive, have done what? They've cut staff. And once you cut staff, all of those people are back again out of the labor force. And the numbers that Eustace was sharing earlier on about the fact that we actually have 10 million people out of work, if you include the people that are discouraged, and that equates to just short of 40% of the economy of South Africa. You can then start thinking what's going to happen if the economy had halved for an entire quarter. And to be honest, we are still kind of, cranking our way back into economic activity. So chances are there will be even higher unemployment. The other feature is industry disruption. Also something that Eustace touched on about how all the industries have been affected over the years to the extent that has led to those economies reducing because of the increase of imports. Now, if you know the basics of economics, you'll know that the calculation of GDP includes net exports, which means if we have more imports than exports, it means that our GDP is reduced. If we have more exports than imports, it means that our GDP improves. So if you want economic growth, you want to be producing more goods locally and also exporting them. But unfortunately, a lot of the industries have been disrupted as a result. Tourism is an obvious one. How much of South Africa's bushes, how much of South Africa's mountains, how much of South Africa's beach destinations are all reliant on foreigners coming into our country and spending their foreign currency and leaving it behind. All of that is essentially disappeared the whole year. No one knows to what extent will people start feeling comfortable to travel again. Look what's happened to the aviation industry. Airlines still not flying today. Some of them not at all, the likes of Mango and even SAA, still going through other issues that they had before. And that's the other issue about COVID-19. The challenge is that we as a country, as an economy, were struggling anyway, right? So COVID-19 is essentially just put a nail on the coffin of many industries, and that's tough. But you might ask, so what does it mean for me? We'll come back to that as well. High corruption. In times of pain, people then get very easily tempted to do the wrong thing because it becomes a bit of a scramble of resources. We saw that with all the PPE saga, and we're going to continue to see that as times get a bit more tough. What does that mean for you as an entrepreneur trying to trade in an honest way in this environment? And then lastly, low business confidence. As people often say, the biggest stimulus you could ask for in an economy, if you can't put money, at least put confidence. And if you just scan the socio-political kind of stage and scene of South Africa, you will see that we're still suffering from a low business confidence. Add COVID-19 to the world, add some developments happening, some geopolitical issues happening between China and the US, add the fact that it's a year of elections in the US. There's so much more. Add Brexit that now seems to be cranking back again. Business confidence in general is low. But all of this sounds like great stats that Andile is regurgitating to me. I've heard this before. It kind of sounds fair. I've read it a bit in the newspaper. I might have heard it on a radio show here and there. What does it actually mean for me? What should I be doing? Well, let's start with the low economic growth. Many of you guys out there do enjoy cake. Some of you even celebrate the day you were born, called a birthday. I'm pretty sure you've never heard of a half birthday cake, okay? Because you often have a full one. Well, welcome to it, ladies and gentlemen. The cake has just halved. You heard the economy shrunk by 51% in the second quarter annualized. That basically means whatever was a whole, whatever was 100% is probably now 50%. And that means every effort, almost everything, even your forecast for this year, literally the gap you've got to play with. The only cake you can eat is a half a whole cake. It's not eating a piece of a bigger cake. Now, obviously, if all we have is a half a cake and there's still so many of us, we're all going to eat less than half potentially of what we could have eaten before. So this low economic growth means that your potential to generate revenue, your potential to go out there and grow and prosper and thrive has just halved. Nothing to do with you personally, it's the nature of the beast. This is the impact of COVID-19. So it's important that you are one with this, that you don't lie to yourself, you don't overwhelm yourself, you don't become overly disappointed when you start looking at your revenue line and it's at least half of what it was last year. That is not your fault. That is a function of what COVID-19 has done to business. Be one with it, be comfortable with it. Yes, it's hard, but don't be overwhelmed and don't think it's personal. It's not personal. We're all going through the same thing. High unemployment, all right? What does it mean for you and I? Well, it means one, we have to deal with the emotional factor of potentially letting people go. Now, one of the things I've certainly worked on this year to try and do is not have a situation where we have to dismiss anybody in our businesses purely because of COVID-19. And that has almost become a South African thing. It's almost, the reason we do it is not because we're trying to make less money as business people. I mean, we are in business to make money, right? And that's why people that don't have this nationalist outlook, that don't have this patriotic outlook, would quite easily, make people leave their jobs or retrench them, or just to make sure that they save on costs. So try by all means not to fire people, because if you do, what that does, it creates social unrest, right? People still need to live. People have got debt or assets. Can you imagine just losing your salary overnight? How then do you care for your loved ones? So it's not in our interest as entrepreneurs to have more and more people unemployed. That 40% is a horrible story. We don't want it to get to 50, 60%. It's important that we do our best. So when I talk about cutting costs later on, if there's one cost I would ask you not to cut is the number of people. But I'll give you a tip of how you can still reduce the wage bill without cutting actual people and putting them actually out of employment. The third I talked about was industry disruption, right? I talked about a few business models that have been threatened. You may be in a business that because of COVID-19, the impact it's had, and it's likely to have into the future, your business model may no longer be sustainable. Now, that is not something you can change. It's not your fault as well. Because for whatever reason, whatever you're doing now is no longer in demand because the world is now a different place. Get over it. Get over yourself. Understand that you're not responsible for changing the world's problems. All you must do as an entrepreneur is be agile, move with the times, have a look at the situation for what it is, not what you hope it is, what it actually is. And if your business model is now unsustainable because of what has happened, move on. Best thing you can do for yourself is to walk away. High corruption. Well, we all know what it does to you and I as business people who are trying to do business not underhandedly. It literally means there's no business opportunity for you and I. Because I might be responding to an opportunity, it might be a tender, or it might be a different open process. If the people involved are exchanging envelopes underneath the tables, that means I don't have that opportunity. And that makes it very difficult. So the way corruption has become so systemic in our country is a concern, because that not only makes government overpay for goods and services, it also takes away opportunity for you and I. Again, another reality we have to live with. We need to find a way to operate and thrive in an environment that is what it is. And then low confidence. Essentially, if there's low business confidence, what's going to happen is that there's going to be less business activity in totality. And that is not something we can change easily. And that is something we may need to learn how to live with, notwithstanding how difficult it might be. And that's probably going to continue for some time. Why? Because we came from a situation where the economy was already struggling in the past. So there you go. That's where we're at in so as reality is concerned. But what does it mean? What does it mean to you and I? It means that desperate times now call for desperate measures. And it's time we look at some real desperate measures. And I've got 3 in the time I've been allocated this morning that I'd like to share with you. The first one is a little concept I call having an income statement life and having a balance sheet life, right? So for the non-accountants, let me give you an accounting 101 course. The income statement is the thing on your top right-hand side, right? That's the thing that's got your sales, your cost of sales, your profit, your expenses, that gets you your income, right? So sales, the amount of sales I made, cost, how much those goods cost me, gross profit, right? That'll be my margin. Then I've got operating expenses, and then I have profit, all right? So the income statement is the thing that generates income for me. Right at the bottom of it is the bottom line. That's what's called the bottom line. It's the money that I'm left with after I've done all of those activities. The balance sheet is the thing at the bottom, right? That often documents my assets and my liabilities. How much, what do I own and what do I owe? And the net of that is what you'll call either net asset, as in I've got net asset value, I'm in the positive, I'm in the green, or a net liability position, which means I'm in the red, I'm not doing well because I've got more debts than I have assets. So I'm saying as an entrepreneur, here's a tip that's worked for me that I'd like to share with you. Try to live your life having income statement activities and having balance sheet activities. Don't try and always make those things the same thing in these difficult times. In a booming economy, in a growing economy, where GDP is growing, where opportunities are abound, absolutely, you can generate income at the same time grow wealth in the same activities. But these tough times call for having cash generating opportunities, things that generate income for you so that you are able to think on a full stomach, you're able to meet your monthly obligations, and all you focus on is generating income. Okay, I'm gonna call that your income statement life. All we care about there is how much net cash do I have at the end of the month, end of the week, so that I can meet my obligations, so that I can keep pushing. On the other side is what I will call your asset life. This is your balance sheet life now. In other words, how do I build wealth? I'm saying these two things need not be the same in difficult times. What does that mean practically? It means you may need to do things that you may not particularly enjoy doing, but you know what? You can do it. For example, you have a skill, all right? A skill that you studied. You know that if you go to people and you offer your time, and they'll pay you. Why? Because people know you've got the skill. But it may not be the business that you want to build. It may not be the wealth you want to build. It may not be the pot of gold you want to find at the end of your rainbow. I'm just saying, in these difficult times, we don't have much choices for the reasons I've already mentioned. Low growth, high unemployment, corruption, etc., low business confidence. Why? Because times are tough. So, at least more, focus on the things that can generate you income. That becomes your income statement life. Whatever it is, as long as it's legal, go and pursue it, generate cash, be able to survive, be able to feed your family, be able to think on a full stomach. And that life, I would propose, must be at least 70% of your life in these difficult times, because you need the cash flow. Maybe 30%, maybe 40% at the stretch, is you pursuing things that will build you wealth. What do I mean by that? In these difficult times, there's a lot of businesses that are up for sale. A lot of companies are getting rid of non-core assets. So you should be looking for those opportunities that will transcend the difficult times we have. This is often the great time to pursue those now, because prices are low and people are a little bit disoriented. There's a shift, right? So this is your time to do it. But be clear. If all you do is chase the wealth stuff, you're not going to eat. If all you do is you chase the eating stuff, you're never going to create wealth. So you need to find a balance. And I'm arguing that in this difficult time, you need to have more weighting towards the income statement life. Pure cash generating, nothing else. And then spend some time, minimal, I'm proposing, for the wealth, because this is not the time to be thinking further than the immediate, because times are tough. You got that? I hope you did. And then next up are specific themes that follow from the income statement balance sheet life that I want to focus on. Sales, cost, cash. If you're not selling, you're not in business, ladies and gentlemen. Whatever it is that you've been doing, if you're not actively pursuing revenue in your business, you're wasting your time. This is the time to knock on every door, even the doors that got shut in your face many a time before. Why? Because the world is in a state of flux. Everybody's looking for a solution towards their problems. Never before have I suddenly operated in an environment where I don't feel, or I feel like no one can tell me, oh, Andile, you can't tell us this. We don't want to hear your proposal, Andile, because you know what? We've always done things this way. A friend of mine told me that at the beginning of lockdown, and I found it so profound. Because even the biggest companies are willing to listen to your ideas. You know why? Because they too are confused. That's how hectic COVID-19 has been. So please, sell, sell, sell. There's a shift out there. Suddenly people are listening to new ideas because they need new ideas. You heard Ntai talking about e-commerce, big shift to digital platforms now. What does it mean for you? And how are you then selling that to your customers? Anything else that's not focused on sales, which is very linked to your income statement life, right? You see the link between the two, because this is the top line in the income statement. There's a reason why the income statement starts with sales. Because if you got zero on sales, the rest of the thing doesn't matter. Everything starts there. So you got to dedicate a hell of a lot of your time in your business of planning who to pitch to, improving your pitch deck, thinking really hard about the proposition you are taking to your clients, and find a way to close as many sales as possible. What's working for me is I'm already thinking about 2021. I'm trying to just wrap up 2020 now, because I'm not likely to get new revenue in the next few months of the year. I know South Africa shuts down second week of December. In fact, probably this year earlier, because we're so frustrated. So the year is almost done. What should I be working on now? Or what I am working on right now? 2021. But what am I doing? I'm selling. Selling, selling, selling. If you're not doing that, something wrong with you. Keep costs low. It sounds obvious, I know. So one of you may come back to me and say, but Andile, the only way I can keep costs low is to fire people. So let me give you the tip when it comes to trying to keep people employed, but not necessarily putting people out of work. If the issue that you have as a business owner when it comes to people is efficiency. So you probably have lower sales, and therefore you may not need as many people as you did before. That does not necessarily mean you have to fire everyone. What you could do is rejig your shifts and rework how long people make. So what that does is that, say I'm working for you, I may now work less hours, which means you're gonna pay me less. But you essentially take a portion of what I would have earned and I share it with somebody else. So if you got two people earning 15,000 Rand each, that's a 30 grand salary. But if I want to reduce that to 20 grand, I shouldn't fire the one guy. Maybe I should say, how about I pay each of you 10 grand each? Now they've each moved from 15 to 10 grand each, as opposed to the 15 grand guy stays at 15 grand and the other 15 grand guy loses his job. So rethink how you're doing this. And our labor practices allow for that, especially when businesses are going through distress, as most of our businesses are in these difficult times. So please think about that when it comes to staff. But here's another tip on all the other costs. We now know, it's proven the world over in this year, 2020, that we can all work from home. We can all work mobile. We can all meet and have productive meetings like we're doing right now. You and I are not in a room. We are not in Sandton Convention Center. I'm not giving you scones. I'm not giving you croissants. I'm not giving you a buffet meal. You're feeding yourself there at home, drinking your coffee or whatever it is you enjoy. But here we are, meeting virtually. I'm sitting in a hotel room in Cape Town doing this. I got meetings the rest of the afternoon. We can do this. What does that mean? That means we can use digital platforms like RSA Made to really save our costs. You don't need that brick and mortar store, really. Certainly not when you're starting off, right? You can have your virtual mall on RSA Made. So look at all your costs, offices, marketing, and Musa later on is going to be talking about digital marketing, and find ways to keep costs low. Why? Because an income statement is very clear. Sales, less cost is profit. So the only way you're going to influence profit is two ways: increase sales or cut costs. And we just covered those two. Then lastly, now this touches a little bit on the balance sheet, because you see, profit is not really cash. Profit is just profit. You know, I buy something, it costs me so much, I've got operating expenses, those are profits I'll make. I still have to collect the cash from my customer. Now, many people have struggled with this, and often entrepreneurs, when they talk about cash, the first thing that comes to mind is, let me go get a loan. I'm saying there is a way you can manage your cash using your customers and suppliers. Why? Collect early. Come up with a way to get your money up front. Find a way, whatever it is, even if you have to give up a little bit of margin, or get, if it's a project, it's a 3-month project and a client wants to pay you at the end of the project, ask for a mobilization amount up front to fund your costs as you're about to embark. Ask for progress payments every month. Why? Because everybody understands that cash is tight. Then, when you've got suppliers, pay them as late as you can. Negotiate terms. Now you're sitting on the other side, okay? So your customer, you must try and get money up front from him, but your creditor, you must try and convince him to pay as late as possible. That's the struggle we're going to have to go through in these difficult times. Otherwise, you're going to have this cash shortfall. And we've all been there, guys, where you sell this thing, or you go and celebrate, you go and buy those beers and pizzas that Ntai was talking about with your mates. And you're like, guys, I've got this 1 million rand contract. And then you realize, oh crap, I have to now deliver this thing. I need 300,000 in the first month. You know what happens? You screw up the job. Why? Because you didn't have the 300,000. Then now that risks your 1 million because you've done a bad job on the job. Now a customer may not be happy and you eventually don't get paid. So cash flow, there's a reason why cash is king. It's king. It's got its crown on top of the pile because it's the oxygen your business needs. So find a way to collect early, pay late, and preserve cash. So in summary, I want to introduce you to this concept of an income statement life and a balance sheet life. On the income statement life, we're only focused on cash generation, income generation. We're doing whatever we can to generate an income. Even if it's not the thing we enjoy doing, even if it's not the thing we're most excited about on a Monday morning. If it's the thing that can legally generate you cash, I'm asking you to do it because times are tough. This is not the time for beggars to be choosers. We are all beggars in these difficult times. Find something that generates the income. It need not be the thing you eventually want to create wealth with. And then your balance sheet life is the wealth creation. What are the projects you can work on now that don't need to pay you now? It's a great idea. It's a 4 years ago RSA made when Ntai and his business partners sat over those beers. Work on that, but be patient. You know why? Because the income is taking care of your stomach. An old man once told me that stomachs are not made for thinking. Brains are made for thinking. The problem is that when we are hungry, all of our perceptive powers focus on the stomach because it's growling. Every 2 seconds you realize, oops, I'm hungry. What happens is you lose the energy to think with your brain. And in essence, you start thinking with your stomach. I'm asking you to split the two. Income generation, whatever it is you can do. Doesn't matter. If you sell oranges, well, go sell oranges. Generate an income to make sure you live. And then you can work on the projects because times are tough and we need to therefore shift a little bit. That brings me to the end of what I wanted to say to you this morning. I hope you found it useful. I can see a few questions coming on and we'll discuss those a little bit later on when we get there. I hope you're still enjoying our webinar, proudly brought to you by Proudly South African. Now, it is time to talk digital marketing. And my good man, Musa Kalenga, has some insights that he put together for us that we'd like to share with you now. and then we'll go to the Q&A and we'll wrap for the morning. Over to you, Musa.
Hey, my name is Musa Kalenga, and I'll be speaking to you about response strategies for small and medium businesses in these crazy and uncertain times. If we look at nature and reflect on how these animals have been able to survive over all these years, it's interesting to see that each animal was built with exactly what it needs to be able to survive. Look at the lion as an example, the king of the jungle. The prowess, the speed, and the sheer power of the lion means that it can hunt and kill things with swift and precision insight. If you think about an elephant, with its sheer mass, its volume, by its skin, its horns, all of it, its tusks, all of it have been designed. An elephant, you think about a chameleon of all things. It's also been able to survive, not by being able to be fast or big or strong or powerful, but being able to blend into the background, and in so doing, being able to survive all these years and all this time. It's important for us to think about that as we consider where we are. I looked at a very awesome quote by the President of the Republic of Ghana, President Nana Akufo-Addo, who speaks about the fact that we aren't able to bring economies back to life. And this human-centered approach to be able to solve problems resonates deeply with me. And we see the same thing being employed by our very own President Cyril Ramaphosa. Or another quote that speaks about a dangerous turn in the road is only dangerous if you forget to turn. And you consider yourself as an entrepreneur, as the person driving the car. You consider your vehicle as being the actual vehicle that's going to be turning through the corner. You have to go wide. You have to enter into the apex of the corner and accelerate out of it. And so the way you navigate the corner is really going to be what determines whether it's dangerous or not. So it's really important for us to keep that in mind as entrepreneurs through these really tough times. The situation pre-COVID-19 was also not the rosiest of pictures. If we consider thinking about our GDP growth, we had growth revised down, and we were on this rickety road to almost recovery, but we were not at the place we needed to be as an economy as a whole. If we think about inflation rates, we were struggling to be able to create more inclusive spaces for organizations and businesses to thrive. Or even unemployment, which was sitting at a phenomenal 29% before COVID-19, meaning that we weren't able to create enough spaces for younger people and more inclusive growth to bring more people into the market. But despite all of that, small, medium businesses, entrepreneurs were plugging forward. They were moving forward, making plans, creating strategies, doing what they needed to do, and all of a sudden, wham, left jab to the face. And I'm sure a lot of you will know that it feels what it felt like when COVID-19 hit and we had to go on lockdown. It literally felt like they had taken the wind out of your sails. And so I never thought I'd be quoting Mike Tyson, but it's a really appropriate thing to say, that everybody's got this amazing plan until you get jabbed in the face. And it's so true. And a lot of you felt that way immediately when lockdown has started to happen. So the important thing we need to talk about today is how do we recover from this? So you've just taken the left jab to the face, and now you're kind of like, whoa, what's going on? You're seeing four heads, you're trying to figure out what is happening. And so the first thing we have to do is we have to stabilize. And the stabilization really is a process of being able to understand what has just happened. And the process of being able to sense make what has just happened allows you to be able to have a counter response that makes a lot more sense. And so when you think about the model that we have, we talk about stabilizing, assessing, stabilizing, pivoting, and then growing. And in your assessing phase, you pretty much look at a very simple way of thinking about how the business is going to thrive. So stabilization as a starting point is about understanding three things. The first is that the macroeconomic curve is going to form a very particular trajectory. And as an entrepreneur, have a viewpoint on what that trajectory is. The second thing is in your own sector, you're likely to have a very different trajectory. I believe, as an example, the economy is going to be in a U-shaped recovery. Whereas the sector curve is going to be specific to my sector, which I operate in. And one of the businesses I run happens to be a business that works in information technology or IT. And so I believe that that sector curve is going to be very different to the U-shaped economic curve. So the sector curve is likely to be a V-shaped sector curve because I believe you create the right products, the right services, and the right solutions. It means that you'll be able to navigate that a lot easier and recover a lot quicker than other companies. So it's very possible for the economy to be on one curve and for your sector to be on another curve. With that in mind, you need to start having your what I call the next day and next week actions, right? The next day actions are what are the actions that you can take immediately within your scope of control that you can implement right now. And those decisions are really crucial because you can make them quickly and you can change things in a lot more nimble way. The next week decisions effectively are those decisions that might involve people outside of your process. It might be a stakeholder group, might be lobbying a regulatory group or a body of people that impact your process or your business somehow. So those are next week decisions. Why? They take a bit of time to land. You think about them a little bit more and you need to consider that over a period of time. So those are the first things you need to do as you are, stabilizing your business, is that you need to make sure that your decisions are very clean, crisp, and well articulated. The next thing you do is you look at 3 business horizons. You consider value over time. And the first business horizon effectively is H1, where you think about how do I defend my current turf, which is the current services and products that you have to the customers that you currently have. How do you make sure you don't have a leaking bucket of customers that are leaving you? So the first and most important thing is defend what you currently have. The next horizon, which is H2, is how do you extend what you currently have? You find adjacencies effectively. So take what you serve and sell to different kinds of people to be able to have them buy into your product or service. The third horizon is effectively about blue sky, where you sell new things to new people altogether. And so when you consider these 3 horizons as a business, have clear plans for each one of those horizons such that you're able to use that to guide your decisions and how you're actually responding during this time. If you look at a company like Facebook, they use this very simple methodology in exactly the same way. Horizon 1 for Facebook was effectively stabilizing their ecosystem, making sure the ad platform worked, and it was actually Facebook, people were coming back to it as a platform. Horizon 2 was about products. So they bought companies like Instagram and WhatsApp, and they built on search, they built on video and all those kind of products in Horizon 2. And then Horizon 3 was all about technologies, right? It was all about understanding where is the world going to go, around connectivity, around AI, around the productization of VR and AR. And those 3 horizons allow you to be brutally focused on what you need to do within that horizon at that particular time. The next step of the process is when you've stabilized, you now assess your surroundings. And assessment is really key because assessment is looking in the mirror and being able to understand what you need to be thinking about as you're building your product or your service. And to be able to look in the mirror, there's 2 things you need to be aware of. One is your implementation agility, and the second thing is your mental resolve. Now, implementation agility really is your ability to make quick decisions. It's your ability to actually take those decisions and change the standard of business operation in your organization, which I think is crucial for you to understand. The next step is about mental resolve, which seems like a small thing, but it's actually quite a big thing. The mental resolve actually tells you that you've made peace with the world and that it's going in a fundamentally different direction. And if you haven't thought about that clearly, sometimes you get caught in nostalgia. So when you're looking in the mirror, you plot these things on these 2 graphs and these 4 quadrants come up. And if you think about the first quadrant, effectively what you have is you've got a high implementation agility, but you've got a very low mental resolve. And so you're in the rocking chair. You're busy implementing stuff, you're doing all these things, but you fundamentally have not made peace with the fact that the world is going in a different direction. The second quadrant is all about your low implementation agility and your low mental resolve. Now here, not only are you not changing your business, you have not even started to think about the world in a different way. So this is the pity party where you're going to stagnate. Unfortunately, stagnation means that you're not going to be able to grow. And then you've got the place where you've got a high mental agility, but low implementation, high mental resolve and low implementation agility, which effectively is the place where you're compliant, you're the complacent, you're ticking all the boxes because you know the world is going differently, but your business is almost calcified to the extent that you can't change it, can't move in a different direction, you can't do different things. And so it becomes quite a frustrating place to be, but you have to change the way you think. And then you have the 4th quadrant, which is about high implementation agility and a high mental resolve, which means you're ready to reinvent, you're ready to thrive, you're ready to go out there and just do things very differently. And so it's a great way to look at yourself in the mirror and start thinking about the way you need to respond. And one of the ways you can respond is actually with innovation. A very simple model by the Harvard Business Review effectively says innovation is about understanding 2 things. The first is how well is your problem that you're trying to solve defined? Secondly is how well is the domain that you're operating in defined? So the problem you're trying to solve versus the domain you're operating in. If you understand those 2 things, you can start to think about how you should be innovating as an organization. So you could, as an example, be in the space where your problem is not well defined and knows your domain. And this typically is where SpaceX is, trying to send people to the moon and understanding how that all works is an undefined space. So their innovation is all about basic research. So understanding what needs to happen in these extraterrestrial environments, understanding material, combustion, propellers, all that kind of stuff is all about basic research. That's just pretty much wrapping our head around the problem. And then you've got a situation where your problem is well defined, but your domain isn't. It's like electric vehicles. that's the domain. But the problem of transportation has been well defined over the years. And so Tesla is really a great example of that. Now, what they do is they have all these skunk works. They have all these processes where they inspire people to try and create and implement and try and disrupt and work very hard on the concept of electric vehicles to be able to advance and to be able to innovate. And then you've got a situation where, like in banking, you've got a very well-defined domain like banking, but the problem, not well-defined, this company called Zelf, effectively trying to solve for integrating banking services into every messenger application. So banking services and messenger application is not well defined at all. In fact, that's how they raise money. They do VCs, they do sprints, they do labs, where they can effectively understand and proof test whether this is going to work. And then in the space where you've got a well-defined problem as well as a well-defined domain, you're going to be pretty much involved with research that has to do, with exercise that has to do with sustaining innovation through research and development labs. You're going to have very clear roadmaps. You're going to be able to do a lot of design thinking, and that's in the space of sustaining innovation. So as you look yourself in the mirror as a small business, number one, be very clear which quadrant you fit in relation to where you are as a business. Are you stagnating? Are you in the pity party? Are you potentially the compliant? Are you ticking all the boxes? Or are you potentially one person that's in the rocking chair going back and forth? Or are you ready to thrive? Step number one. Step number two, what innovation pathway am I likely to take to be able to get to the place I need to get to? And that's understanding how well your domain is defined as well as your problem is defined. The next thing we look at is the pivot. And the pivot for me is really interesting because a lot of you have known whether the pivot is going in a different direction or changing direction. And I tell you that the pivot today is about the point in which you start, right? So if you consider the foot on the ground when you're running as an athlete, if you're trying to make a very quick and sharp turn, you have to have a strong foot and firm ground. If you have a strong foot and shaky ground, you can break your leg. So the point from which you pivot is equally important to the direction you go. And so how we think about the pivot is we consider there's two things that we need to understand. There's proficiency and there's degree of proficiency. So both of us can sell bread, but one person can sell bread better than the other. And then there's depth of relationship. Both of us can have a good relationship with someone, but one relationship can be better than the other. And so these things have got a degree. And if you plot that, you'll know that startups will be in the space where they tend to have low proficiencies as well as low relations or shallow relationships. And so what they're trying to do is fundamentally move from that space to a different space. You've got these high value legacy organizations which tend to have high proficiencies, but they struggle to get into new relationships, new markets, and new spaces. My favorite is the tenderpreneur who tends to have deep relationships. He knows everybody in the department or everybody in the senior team, but he tends not to have such a great level of proficiency. So he has to partner, he has to do JVs, he has to find people who can outsource, et cetera, et cetera. And then you've got the high impact entrepreneurs who tend to have high proficiencies as well as very deep relationships. So if we consider that as our point of pivot, you're then starting from a place where you start to understand what you do really well as an organization. And then you can figure out where you need to go to. Because the second step is effectively around understanding your customer problem really well. So you spend a lot of time in that customer discovery phase, and then you validate that problem. So is it real and are they willing to pay for it? And you've got to go round and round in circles between those two quadrants before you realize that you've got something, and then you create a customer, and then you create a business off that. So your pivot actually starts by being very critical about where you are from a proficiency and a relationship perspective. An organization that recently I've seen do something like this is the partnership between Uber Eats as well as, what are they called? The guys who deliver books, exclusive books. That's who they are. So Uber Eats sat there and they thought during lockdown, geez, we can't deliver food. Why? People aren't allowed in restaurants. Similarly, exclusive books sat there and said, people have got more time available because they're sitting at home, but they can't buy books from us. They obviously had a very underdeveloped ecosystem from an e-commerce perspective. So the partnership was, let's look at our proficiencies, what we do well, and let's find people to partner with to create a new value or a new system of delivery. And so we all saw the news that broke that Uber Eats had partnered with exclusive books, and they were now able to deliver books to wherever you were. And so this is really a clever way of thinking about how you create partnerships to develop new value as small businesses. In fact, when we think about decisions, some of these things require to make really exponential decisions that take you outside of your comfort zone, right? And so if you consider your comfort zone, these two kind of options are you have incremental decisions or you've got exponential decisions. And the book that I wrote, Ladders and Trampolines, really speaks about those two as different concepts, right? You can have an incremental decision, which effectively gives you the incremental benefit over time. And that's not a bad thing. But you also need to be clear that you can have exponential decisions. And the moment in which you make an exponential decision, you're changing the trajectory in quite a drastic way. And so you need to be able to be cognizant of that to understand the benefit of both cases. So just to recap on the pivot, the first and most importantly is understand the point from which you're pivoting from, which is effectively understanding your proficiency level against the depth of your relationships. Once you've been able to do that, you can start to close the gap on how you think about the decisions that you have to make. So you've got incremental decisions, and then you've got exponential decisions, and those two are very different. And then third but not least, you have to think about the process of customer discovery, spending time obsessing with your customer and validating that what you're doing is actually a thing, and making sure that when that lines up, you can then create a customer, and then you actually begin the process of building a business. That's how we think about the pivot, and I think that's a great way for us to start moving into the last phase, which is exciting. It's all about growth, the thing that we want as small businesses. And growth effectively is understanding that post-COVID-19, there are things you have to do now during COVID-19. And so a big part of growth is around people. And if we think about the 4 things that are top of mind for people that are sitting in your organization or the space that you work, the first thing is obviously financial stability. Health and wellness is a big thing. The productivity as people that sit within those organizations is a real thing. And their families, they're top of mind. So if we consider that, how are we planning for post-COVID realities in the things that we're doing right now? Well, there are 3 kind of pillars that we need to consider. The first one is thinking about your leadership and or management. Now, I consider this a very key thing to do, because not only do businesses die, but they're unable to scale if you don't think about that middle layer, what I call the missing middle layer. And that missing middle layer really allows you to be able to scale your business from here to the next level. And so during COVID-19, provide them with extraordinary opportunities, right? That missing middle are the ones that you need to be able to give tasks, you need to challenge them, you need to get them to think about problems differently. All of those things are really critical if you're going to have a look at how they operated during COVID-19 to get the benefit of the value post COVID-19. The second thing is that we think about our processes, right? The curse of being an entrepreneur. Everything sits here and you have a clear sense of how it works in your head. And then you get someone to come work for you and you say, you need to do ABC. And he goes, cool, I can do ABC. He delivers ABC and you're going, no, man, that's not what I meant. And so you've got this misalignment between what they were supposed to deliver and what you have in your head. Small businesses, make sure you take what's out of your head or what's in your head out and codify it. Make sure your process has been very clearly defined such that it's very simple and easy for anyone to come and reference it, right? Once you've done that, make sure that people who are impacted by your process have got buy-in to the process. They understand how it works. They know it's valuable. Otherwise, it becomes just another thing that you're making them do. So when you codify the process, you get buy-in, you then use the process to liberate, right? You get people to work within the space of working from home or new environments or new circumstances in such a way that they liberate, not because they're now having to do it, but because they see the value in implementing the process. And then third, but most importantly, that's when you apply technology. When you think about technology and its role, you have to have thought about your middle management and your organization, your structure. You have to have thought about the processes that you have, and then the technology will work for you. Then the technology becomes an amazing enabler. You're able to get data insights, you're able to implement stuff that allows you to be able to monitor, to communicate, to monetize. All of those things come once you spent a lot of time critically evaluating where your organization is from a process perspective and from a people perspective. And then when we think about what happens after that is that we have to realize that our environment has fundamentally shifted. Now, we always used to talk about the CBD being Joburg or Sandton or Pretoria. And this concept of the CBD now is now the localized CBD. So everybody's kitchen table, everybody's study, everybody's place of work, wherever everybody is in your business, they have to convert that into a productive workspace. And for us to get the benefit, we need to show up differently in these crazy times. For us, it's been important to think about the way that we check in with our team. We've got a 7 o'clock check-in, a 3 o'clock check-in in the afternoon. That's official business check-in. Then we've got a buddy system where people check in with each other to make sure that things are still okay. The way we run meetings has changed. They have to be shorter and more direct. So prepare for the meetings, have an agenda, have a direction. Why? You don't want people sitting for hours and hours and hours in front of the screen because it's not good for them. But secondly, it helps you be more directed. This 1 hour meeting thing is the bane of my life. It doesn't have to be an hour every time. It has to be fit for purpose. So when you direct people's energy and you get them to focus on what they need to do, it's a lot easier to manage that process. And then we need to think about, once we're doing that, how it is that we lead authentically. Now, in our case, we don't want to micromanage. We're not an organization that believes in standing over you and making sure you're doing the work. We believe in liberating you, autonomy and delivery. But most importantly, if your process is not in place, it's very difficult to achieve that. So we always have this struggle between servant leadership and high performance. Sometimes these things tussle, but it's part of our culture. We have to stay true to this as we're leading people to start getting to a point where they feel and they believe that they can contribute to our business in an authentic way and in an inspiring way, because for us, that's really where the value comes from, working with young people in this space. So the last thing I'd love for you to do is just to reflect on the journey that we've come on. There's been a number of different things that we've discussed. And the first thing that we did is that we spoke about the process of stabilization. You've been punched in the face and you need to stabilize. And you figure out, did you get hit by 4 faces or 1? You're just doing all of that because you're trying to figure out how you stabilize. And you stabilize by asking yourself some questions relating to what economic curve are we on and what curve is in our sector? How do I focus on my decisions? What are the horizons that apply? That's a big part of stabilization. Once you stabilize, you're now assessing. You're now thinking about, okay, cool, I got punched in the face, now what do I do? That's a look in the mirror to be able to understand, you have a high mental agility, a mental resolve, and a high implementation agility, or any one of those quadrants in between. Because that point of view will allow you to understand how you innovate. Are you going to need a sustaining innovation? Are you going to need breakthrough innovation? Are you need basic research? All those innovation pipelines are ways that you start to look yourself in the mirror and think about your way forward. And then it's the pivot, right? Thinking about how you move in a different direction, and your starting point is equally important. And so your pivot says to you, I need to go there, or you need to go there. And as a result of that, you understand proficiency of your delivery, as well as the relationships that you have. And then hopefully growth. Post Covid-19, you want to be amazing. You all want to be amazing. And you have to think about your middle management layer. You have to think about your processes that sit in here, and you have to think about the technology that you apply. And that's critical for us to be able to make this thing work. So ladies and gentlemen, the thing I'll leave you with is a great quote by a guy by the name of Charles Darwin, and he spoke about it is not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent. It is the most adaptable to change. So I'll put it to you, it's not the strongest of entrepreneurs, nor the one with the biggest balance sheet. It is the one that is most adaptable to change. And so I wish you all the best on this journey. I know it's tough, I know it's difficult, but with the adaptation model, you can survive this really uncertain time. Good luck.
Thank you, Musa. Thank you so much for that. Musa did that recording for us a little while ago, and thank you to him for helping us think of a different perspective when it comes to running organizations in these times. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope all of it has been good for you. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have been enjoying bringing it to you. I'm going to go to my panelists, though, now and just double check with them any final comments that want to come from them now that we've had the full package, I guess, of all the presentations for the morning. Let me start with Ntai, and I'll give the CEO the last word since he's the boss and everything. You know, Ntai, we want to be invited back here again, so you must always allow the chief to speak last. Ntai.
He is the most important guy, regardless of the soccer team that he supports. Anyway, so Andile, and to all the listeners, just a few last words from my side. Like I said before, be online, regardless of the way you do it. Start somewhere, start small. That's perfectly fine. But we are here to assist. We are here to take the guesswork out of your sales initiatives, your sales strategies online, and we're here to take the administration of that whole process out of the way. We're not the best in the world, but we certainly are striving to get there, and we'll get there very soon. I can promise you that. We adhere to the most stringent guidelines from financial institutions, so our platform is safe. We can deliver almost anywhere you want to globally, and we have the best digital marketing agency in the country supporting our efforts to make sure that people know we are here. Guys, come onto our mall. We are here to help. We are here to do great things. We are here to do it in the spirit of Ubuntu. Thanks very much, Andile.
Thank you, Mr. Khojane. CEO.
Thank you. We want to talk about which soccer team I support. We will leave that.
You support Bafana, I know.
No, the reigning champions for the last 3 seasons.
Oh, goodness. I thought we could avoid.
But I think as a parting shot, as part of South African, we are tasked with the responsibility of ensuring that those who make their products locally or render their services locally are able to capture as big a share of the market as possible. And so we are here to help you. If you make your products locally, if you render your services locally, we're an access to market campaign, and the partnership with RSA Made and the fact that we have adopted it as our official online store is testament to that. The work we do in the private sector and in the public sector needs companies to come on board. We constantly secure opportunities, but we are at times faced with a situation where we don't necessarily have companies to take the opportunities to. And so position yourself as a potential beneficiary. Some companies might come on board. I mean, last week I dealt with an email of someone who said, I've been on board for a year and no opportunity has come to me. So it happens. I mean, it's the luck of the draw as well. It's if you secure opportunities in your industry and you've positioned yourself, that's the investment you can make for yourself. That when that opportunity comes, you're already in the system. And that's what I would urge every single entrepreneur to do. Position yourself, join Proudly South African, contact us, at proudlysa.co.za, and they will be able to assist you. And thank you very much. Thank you, Andile.
Thank you, Sundowner. We appreciate that. I'm actually joined by people who support weird teams, Orlando Pirates, Sundowns, you know. Anyway, from the Chiefs fan who still can't get over the last day of the Football League, I guess my last comment is I left you with an idea of living an income statement life and a balance sheet life. And I'm asking you, and I know we all run businesses because we're trying to build wealth for ourselves and our families. And so we're not attracted to doing the things that don't inspire us. I'm saying that given these difficult times, do what you can to generate income, because you can't think, plan, and execute on an empty stomach. So a bit more time and a bit more energy on the income statement life. And then don't move your eye totally from the balance sheet life. But it's not the priority right now, unfortunately. Right now, the priority is breathing, just staying alive. So thank you so much for everyone for joining us. And I've also been asked by the team to remind you that a questionnaire will be coming to you via email. We obviously have your email address. And please, when you get that questionnaire, please do complete the questionnaire so that we can get your views on what you thought of the session today. To wrap things up for us, though, it is now time for me to hand over to the real boss lady. If you think Eustace is the boss, this is the real boss. And I'm talking about Happy Ngidi. Khumalo, are you ready?
Yes, I am. Thank you so much, Ndungwa, much appreciated. You do know that it's a limiting exercise, what you've just thrown just now. The real boss is online. That's a trap. But thank you so much. So mine is a very simple task, you know, where mine is to really just acknowledge everybody who made all of this possible, and thank you for it. And I'll start with you, Ndungwa. But let me start with a disclaimer. I don't know this guy, guys. I do not know him. I just met him in these corporate streets and these social streets. Don't let the surname fool you, lest we make headlines just now.
Yeah, you never know. You never know.
You never you never. In Zulu we say isibongo fanana cha, nothing else. So thank you so much, Andile, for being a facilitator and really a friend of the campaign for so many years. You remain our strength in the entrepreneurship space, you know, and we really appreciate your being, you know, your showing up. They say, you know, when somebody shows up when it matters the most, you know that you have a friend in that person. Thank you so much. You know, as you took us through your views around the economy, a part of me felt that you were the bearer of bad news because you went in. You really, honestly went in, and what a rude awakening. But your views on the state of our economy as South Africa and the world over is our reality. It just makes you pause for a second and really just, whether you're in business or you are a consumer, it really just makes you, you know, pause for a little bit and think and rethink everything around your space. But I did feel that it was and just like I feel COVID-19 is a jab that we've all, you know, have dealt with. And as we were dealing with the jab, and then there was an uppercut that came from nowhere. Actually, the economy before COVID-19 was a jab. And because the economy was in trouble already, and while we were dealing with the jab, and then an uppercut came by way of COVID-19, and then, and then 6 months later, I think it's a proper TKO for all of us. Right? It's a proper TKO for all of us.
I love the analogy. I'm stealing it right now.
Yes, and it's about how we get ourselves up and we walk again. Because nobody said it was going to be a walk in the park, and now we know what that meant. So we will be calling on you again, Andile, because when we as proudly South African walk that journey to reignite our economy, it's going to take a nation, you know, and with voices such as yours in the forefront, you know, galvanizing South Africans to do this thing, to do the right thing. So we know where you live. At least I know. I'll find you. Thank you so much, my brother. I respect your hustle, and I respect you for the work and your selflessness. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And now to our CEO of Proudly South African, the one with that who is in that team of just 15 supporters.
Love it, love it. That all live in one city.
They're all in Mamelodi, no worries. They're all
Maybe
there.
that's the recipe. Maybe that's the recipe. Having the fence seems to distract people. 15 and then you win.
It's just the coach who's in the Babs. Coach Peter is just in the Babs. Everybody else is in Mamelodi. So easy equation there. I know that I won't get fired, in this platform. I have too many witnesses. So I'm taking a chance. Thank you so much, CEO, for setting the tone, for your opening remarks, and for really zooming into the work that we do. We come a long way. The past 3 years, 4 years, you've really done a great job as steering the ship in the right direction. And, what I want to take, from the many, critical areas that you zoomed into is the fact that we are an access to market effort, so to speak. It's one thing for somebody to have a great idea and a great product, but if they don't have a market they can sell their product to, it defeats the purpose. It's the long and short of it is that it's game over for them, so to speak. So it's been rough for many people given COVID-19, and it has been rough for Proudly South African as well, but thank you for steering the ship in the right direction. We've weathered the storm just like everybody else, but our boat did not topple. And thank God for that. We remain grateful. We're in a space where we see all the time retrenchments and all sorts of things, and we're about job creation and job sustaining the jobs that South Africans have. So for us, it's real. So thank you for your contribution today. And then Mr. Ntai Khojane, our partner in crime. So we're 2 years together. We're the terrible twos. RSA Made has just turned 2 years. The terrible twos. It's a hell of a thing. But
we make it great though.
Yes, we make it great. We really, really make it great. And there's many things, Ntai, that are in the pipeline. The work coming up, that you're part of, and it's great. The future looks amazing. So hang in there. I know at some point some of us were pulling our weaves off. I don't know what you were pulling. You and Karamba. Pulling your goatee.
No, we managed. There's enough alcohol in the world to help us survive, so we managed.
There we go.
Okay.
Does anybody know General Cele's digits? I have a call to make.
and also Kaiser Chiefs kept us laughing as well.
You had to go there.
Thanks, Happy. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And here's my takeout from what you shared. I mean, there's quite a lot, and I felt because we family, so I could resonate with everything that you said. But my takeout from your presentation today is that if your business is not online, then your business is not in business. I mean, for me, it's the end of the story. Honestly, if your business, because I'm also such a social media person, and because I know the power of social media, and this guy, has just really summed it up for me. If your business is not out there, then your business is not in business. And that's the long and short of it. The responsibility still lies with you. Don't underestimate the power of social media. Last but not least, Musa Kalenga, thank you so much for your presentation around response strategies in uncertain times. Thank you for your insights. We like Musa, Andile. You know, he speaks our language. You don't mind if we also give him an access card to Proudly South African, right? We need friends. We also need friends. We need friends. But in conclusion, the long and short of it really is that running a business, any business, is not a walk in the park. We all know that. And a pandemic or not, it really does not matter, even under normal circumstances. It's not easy at all. And no one starts a business with an intention to fail. When you are in business, you want to make it. That's the whole idea. Nobody starts a business with an intention to fail. And I've just put on my entrepreneurship hat now because I know the journey. Nobody does it with an intention to fail, but life will happen. Life will happen. And in this instance, COVID happened. Who would have thought? Who would have thought that life would force us to stay away from each other, first of all, you know, let alone run a business. You know, and not so long ago, I was saying to somebody, you know, if you think of what almost all of us said last year at some point, because we were busy doing our thing, running around, running business, working and doing all sorts of things. And I mean, a number of times I would get home and I would post, this weekend, I don't want to know. I don't want to know who's getting married. I don't want to know whose birthday party it is. I do not want to know. I want to be on the couch with the remote. And you know what? The universe listened to most of us. For the last 6 months, the universe said to us, you will be on the couch on your remote and stay put because you've asked for it. Now I'm giving it to you. So COVID dealt with all of us. For once, we sat and we could not move because we've been asking for it for so many, many years, the power of the mouth. So please, let's be careful what we say going forward. Please. Say what you complain in moderation so the universe does not deal with us anymore. So we all want to make it. So just my parting shot is that we all have a responsibility and we can all play a part in ensuring that this economy gets to where we want it. It's not going to happen by magic, and it's not going to happen. It's not going to take some of us to do it, but it's going to take everybody. We need to buy local. We need to support local. Thank you so much, everybody. See you on the 15th of October. We have another webinar coming up where we're going to be looking at how to make your brand meaningful during these unprecedented times. What is your differentiator? The fact that you have a product is not enough. What is the differentiator? Why would I, as a consumer, walk into that store or go online on RSA Mate and choose to buy your product? What is your differentiator going to be? And that's our next webinar on the 15th of October. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, technical team. You guys are great. Thank you behind the scenes. Thank you. Bye.